My son just walked past me carrying a brand new TV like I was invisible. Not around me. Not with a polite, "Excuse me, Mom." Just past me. Through my living room. Up my stairs. Into her bedroom. I stood there holding my coffee cold now because I'd been waiting for him to come home for 2 hours and watched his back disappear down the hallway. The hallway with the family photos. The hallway where I used to chase him when he was 5, giggling, begging for one more cookie before dinner. "Daniel?" I called out. Nothing. Then I heard it. Her voice. High-pitched, delighted, like Christmas morning. "Oh my God, baby, it's huge, it's perfect." Sarah, my daughter-in-law. The woman who moved into my house 6 months ago because of temporary financial trouble. The woman who was supposed to stay for 8 weeks and somehow never left. I looked down at my own TV. 12 years old. The screen flickered blue, then black, then blue again. I'd been watching my cooking show the only hour of the day that felt like mine when it died. Just gave up. Like it knew. I set my coffee down on the side table. The same table I'd bought 40 years ago when my husband and I first moved in, when this house was ours, when I mattered here. Upstairs, I heard drilling. He was mounting it to the wall. I climbed the stairs slowly. My knees don't work like they used to. Nobody notices that either. The guest bedroom door, her door now, was wide open. I stood in the doorway and watched my son on a stepladder, drill in hand, installing a wall mount like he was building her a shrine. The TV box sat on the bed. Sleek. Black. 65 inches, the label said. Sarah stood beside him, hands clasped together, practically bouncing. "A little to the left, babe," she said. "Perfect. Oh, it's going to look so good." I cleared my throat. Daniel glanced over his shoulder, barely. "Hey, Mom." "Hey, Mom," I repeated. "That's all I get?" He turned back to the wall, twisting a screw. "I'm kind of in the middle of something." "I can see that." Sarah looked at me then. Smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Isn't it amazing?" Daniel surprised me. "I've been so stressed with work, and he said I deserved something nice." "Something nice?" I glanced back toward the stairs. Toward my living room. Toward the dead TV that I'd watched 1,000 meals beside. 1,000 lonely nights since my husband died. "My TV stopped working," I said quietly. Daniel didn't turn around. "Yeah, I know. It's old, Mom. Things break." "I was thinking, maybe," I hated how small my voice sounded, "maybe we could switch, just for now, until I can get a new one?" The drilling stopped. Daniel climbed down from the ladder. Slowly, he set the drill on the dresser and finally looked at me. His eyes were cold, not angry, worse, indifferent. "Mom," he said, like he was explaining something to a child. "Sarah works hard all day. She's exhausted when she gets home. She deserves to relax in comfort." I stared at him. "And I don't?" "That's not what I said." "Then what are you saying?" Sarah stepped forward, touching his arm. Gentle, possessive. "Babe, it's okay. Your mom doesn't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice sharper now. "I understand that I've lived in this house for 40 years. I understand that I raised him here. I understand that I buried my husband from this house, and I understand that apparently none of that matters anymore." Daniel sighed, rubbed his face. "Mom, don't make this dramatic." "Dramatic? You're acting like we did something terrible. It's just a TV." "It's not about the TV." "Then what's it about?" I opened my mouth, closed it. "Because how do you explain to your son that he's erasing you? That every day you feel a little more like a ghost in your own home?" "Forget it," I whispered. I turned and walked away, down the hallway, past the family photos that nobody looks at anymore, down the stairs, gripping the railing because my hands were shaking. Behind me, I heard Sarah's voice, low and sweet. "You're such a good husband." And I heard my son laugh. I sat in my living room in the dark. The TV screen was still blue, frozen, dead. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, in the chair my husband used to sit in, and stared at nothing. Upstairs, I could hear them. laughing, the sound of the new TV turning on. Some action movie, explosions and music, the volume up way too loud. Nobody came downstairs to check on me. Nobody asked if I was okay. I looked around the room, at the couch we'd saved up 6 months to buy, at the bookshelf I'd built with my own hands, at the wedding photo on the mantel, me in white, my husband grinning, young and alive and here. This was my house. Mine. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped acting like it. I'd let them take and take and take, because that's what mothers do, right? We give, we sacrifice, we stay quiet. I stood up. My knees ached, but I didn't care. I walked to the hallway closet and pulled down the attic ladder. It creaked as it unfolded, dust raining down like snow. I needed to see something, to remember something. I climbed up into the attic, pulling the string for the single light bulb. It flickered on, casting long shadows over boxes and old furniture and 40 years of memories. I started digging. Past Christmas decorations. Past my husband's old tools. Past Daniel's baby clothes. Folded and saved, because I thought maybe, someday, he'd want them for his own kids. And then I found it. A manila folder, worn at the edges, labeled in my husband's handwriting. Property documents. I pulled it out, opened it. Inside was the deed to the house. I stared at the names on the paper. My name. My husband's name. Not Daniel's. Not Sarah's. Ours. I sat down on an old trunk, the deed trembling in my hands, and I started to laugh. Quiet at first, then louder. Because I'd been sitting on the answer all along. They thought this was their house now. They thought I was just the old woman who stayed out of the way. But this house, every brick, every nail, every inch of it, it was mine. And I was about to remind them. The attic dust hit my lungs like a fist. I coughed hard, covering my mouth with my sleeve, but I didn't stop digging. I couldn't. Something had ignited in me downstairs, something that had been dormant for too long, and now I was on fire. I shoved aside a box of Christmas ornaments, pulled out another marked Daniel School Years. Inside were his report cards, all A's and B's, little notes from teachers. Such a sweet boy. Always helps others. A joy to have in class. I wondered when that changed. When the sweet boy became the man who looked through me like I was furniture. I set the box aside and kept searching. My husband's reading glasses, still in their case. I opened it, touched the frames, and my throat tightened. He'd worn these every night, sitting in his chair, reading the newspaper while I knitted. We didn't need to talk. We just existed together, comfortable, safe. God, I missed him. I missed having someone who saw me. I wiped my eyes and kept going. The wedding album was buried under a stack of blankets, white leather, corners bent from age. I opened it carefully, and there we were, young, smiling. My dress had been my mother's, altered to fit me. His suit was borrowed from his brother. We had $17 between us, and a dream of building something beautiful together. And we did. We built this house. Not literally, we weren't contractors, but we made it ours. Every room had a memory. Every corner had a story. The kitchen, where he taught me to make his mother's lasagna. The backyard, where we planted the oak tree that now shaded half the lawn. The bedroom, where we held each other through miscarriages and job losses and the terrifying joy of bringing Daniel home from the hospital. This house was our third child, the one that never talked back, the one that never left. Until now, it felt like even the house had forgotten me. I set the album down gently and reached for the next box. That's when I saw it. A folder, manila, faded, the label written in my husband's careful handwriting, property documents. My hands shook as I pulled it out. Inside were papers, official papers, the kind you sign at a lawyer's office with too many witnesses and not enough understanding of what they mean. But I understood now. I unfolded the deed to the house. The paper was yellowed, creased from being folded and unfolded over the years. The county seal was still visible in the corner. The date, 30 years ago. The month we finally paid off the mortgage. And there, in black ink, were two names. Mine. My husband's. Not Daniel's. Not Sarah's. Ours. I traced my finger over my husband's signature. His handwriting was so distinct, slightly slanted, the T in his name always a little too tall. I could picture him signing it, grinning at me across the table, saying, "We did it, sweetheart. It's really ours." A tear fell onto the paper. Then another. I didn't wipe them away. Above me, the single light bulb swung slightly, casting shifting shadows across the attic. Below me, I heard voices. Laughter. I froze, listening. It was coming from the kitchen. Through the heating vents, sound traveled up into the attic like whispers through a confessional. "This is so much better than that terrible TV your mom had." Sarah's voice. Light, happy. "Right?" Daniel laughed. "I don't know how she watched that thing for so long. She probably didn't even notice. Old people don't care about stuff like that." Old people. I gripped the deed tighter. "She'll be fine," Daniel said. "She doesn't need much. She just watches her cooking shows and knits." "She knits?" Sarah sounded surprised. "I've never seen her knit." "She used to. I don't know. Maybe she stopped." A pause. "Do you think she's mad about the TV?" Sarah asked. Daniel sighed. "Probably, but she'll get over it. She always does." I closed my eyes. She always does. Because I always had. Every time Daniel forgot my birthday. Every time Sarah rearranged my kitchen without asking. Every time they made decisions about my house without including me. I swallowed it, smiled, stayed quiet. Because that's what good mothers do. But good mothers also protect what's theirs. I carefully folded the deed and slid it back into the folder. Then I tucked the folder under my arm and climbed down the attic ladder, my knees protesting with every step. I didn't go to the kitchen. I didn't confront them. Instead, I went to my bedroom, the small one downstairs that used to be the guest room, the one I'd moved into after my husband died because the master bedroom upstairs felt too empty, and I sat on the edge of my bed. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked. Daniel had promised to fix it months ago. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Robert Martinez, our family lawyer, the man who'd handled my husband's estate, the man who'd walked me through the worst year of my life with patience and kindness. I hesitated. Once I made this call, there was no going back. But then I heard Sarah's laugh again, echoing through the house. My house. I hit call. He answered on the third ring. "Hello? Robert?" I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "It's me. I need to talk to you about the house." "Of course. Is everything okay?" I looked down at the deed in my lap, at my husband's signature, at the proof that I wasn't powerless. "Not yet," I said quietly, "but it will be." The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I went into the kitchen and started cooking. Blueberry pancakes, Daniel's favorite, the ones I used to make every Sunday when he was little. Crispy bacon, fresh orange juice, squeezed by hand. I don't know anymore," I whispered. Robert set down his pen and leaned forward. "Let me be very clear. You own that house. Legally, completely, entirely. Your name and your late husband's name are on the deed. Not Daniel's, not Sarah's, which means you have every right to decide who lives there and under what conditions." "I know. But he's my son." The words hung in the air between us. Robert nodded slowly. "I understand. And I'm not going to pretend this is easy. But you came here for a reason. So let me ask you directly, what do you want?" I looked down at my hands, weathered, wrinkled. Hands that had changed Daniel's diapers and packed his school lunches and held him when he cried. Hands that had built a life. "I want my house back," I said quietly. "I want to matter again." Robert picked up his pen. "Then let's make that happen." He slid a stack of papers across the desk toward me. Official documents, legal terms I didn't fully understand, but Robert explained each one patiently. "This is a formal eviction notice," he said, tapping the first page. "It gives them 30 days to vacate the property. It's legally binding. Once you serve this, they have to leave." My stomach twisted. 30 days? That's the minimum required by law in this state. You can give them longer if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. I stared at the paper. Eviction. Such a cold word. What if... I hesitated. What if I just talked to him first, explained how I feel? Robert's expression softened. "You can try, but based on what you've told me, I don't think he's ready to hear it. Sometimes, people need consequences before they understand what they've done." I thought about Daniel, about the way he'd looked at me last night. Indifferent, dismissive. "Things break, Mom." "You're right," I said. "He won't listen." Robert nodded. "Then this is your best option. You serve the notice. They have 30 days. If they don't leave, we can pursue formal eviction through the courts, but most people leave once they realize you're serious. And if they don't, then we make them." I picked up the papers. They were heavier than they looked. "There's one more thing," Robert said gently. "Once you do this, your relationship with Daniel will change. Maybe permanently. You need to be prepared for that." I looked up at him. "It's already changed. He just hasn't noticed." Robert handed me a pen. Expensive, heavy, the kind of pen that meant business. "Then let's remind him," he said. I pressed the pen to the signature line. My hand didn't shake. Not even a little. I signed my name in clear, firm letters. And with that one signature, everything shifted. I left Robert's office with the eviction notice tucked in my purse, sealed in an official envelope with my son's name on it. I walked to my car, old, dented, the one Daniel kept saying I should replace, and sat behind the wheel for a long moment. Through the window, I could see the law office, could see Robert through the glass, already on to his next client, his next case. But for me, this wasn't just a case. This was my life. I started the car and drove home slowly, my mind spinning. What would I say when I gave them the notice? How would Daniel react? Would he yell, cry, beg? Would he finally see me? I pulled into the driveway. Daniel's car was there, Sarah's too. I sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, the envelope burning a hole in my purse. Then I got out and walked inside. The house smelled like takeout, Chinese food probably. Nobody had bothered to cook. I found them in the living room, my living room, sitting on the couch, eating lo mein straight from the containers, watching some reality show on Sarah's laptop. They didn't look up when I entered. "How was the doctor?" Daniel asked, mouth full. "Fine," I said. "Good." That was it. No follow-up questions, no concern. I stood there, my purse heavy on my shoulder, and watched them. My son, his wife, in my house, eating food I didn't make, laughing at jokes I wasn't part of. And I realized I'd already lost him. The eviction notice wasn't taking him away. He'd left a long time ago. "I'm going to make dinner," I said quietly. "We already ate," Sarah said, not looking up. "Oh, okay." I turned and walked to the kitchen. I set my purse on the counter, pulled out the envelope, stared at Daniel's name written in Robert's neat handwriting. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow morning, I'd serve them breakfast one last time. And then I'd serve them something else. I made breakfast like it was my last meal. Eggs, scrambled soft the way Daniel liked them. Toast, buttered while still hot. Crispy bacon that filled the whole house with the smell of better days. Fresh coffee, not the instant stuff Sarah bought, but the good beans I'd been saving for a special occasion. This was special, just not in the way they'd think. I set the table carefully. 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 napkins. The envelope sat on the counter behind me, next to the coffee maker, waiting. My heart hammered in my chest, but my hands were steady. Daniel came down first, hair still wet from the shower. "Morning, Mom. Smells good." "Sit," I said. "It's almost ready." Sarah followed a few minutes later, yawning, wrapped in the expensive robe Daniel had bought her for Christmas. The Christmas where I'd gotten a grocery store gift card and a generic "Thanks, Mom" text. She sat down without a word. I brought the food to the table, served them first, like I always did, like a good mother, like a good maid. They started eating. "This is really good," Daniel said, mouth full. "You should cook breakfast more often." I stood at the counter, watching them. "You should cook breakfast more often." As if I hadn't spent 40 years cooking breakfast. As if I hadn't packed his lunches every single day until he left for college. As if I was the one who'd stopped, and not him who'd stopped noticing. I picked up the envelope, walked to the table, and set it down between them. Sarah saw it first. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "What's this?" Daniel glanced at it. "I don't know. Mom?" I didn't sit down. I stood at the head of the table, my table, and folded my arms. "Open it," I said quietly. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She set down her fork and picked up the envelope, turning it over in her hands like it might explode. "It's addressed to Daniel." "Then Daniel should open it," I said. My son looked between me and the envelope, confused. "Mom, what's going on?" "Just open it." He took it from Sarah, tore it open carelessly, pulled out the papers inside. I watched his face as he read. Confusion first. Then his eyebrows went up. His mouth opened slightly. Then the color drained from his face. "What is it?" Sarah leaned over, trying to see. Daniel's voice came out strangled. It's an eviction notice." Silence. Sarah grabbed the papers from his hands. Her eyes scanned the page, moving faster and faster. "This says we have to leave. 30 days. This says—" She looked up at me, and her face had gone pale. "You're kicking us out?" "Yes," I said. The word came out calm, strong. Daniel stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Mom, what the hell? Don't curse at me in my house." "Your house?" His voice was rising. "We live here? You live here because I let you live here. There's a difference." Sarah stood up too, the papers shaking in her hands. "This is insane. We're family. You can't do this." "Actually," I said, "I can. The house is in my name. Only my name. Which means I decide who stays and who goes." Daniel ran his hands through his hair, pacing now. "This is because of the TV, isn't it? Jesus, Mom, I'll buy you a TV. Is that what you want? Fine, I'll go out right now and—" "It's not about the TV." "Then what is it about?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. At the man who'd once held my hand crossing the street, who'd cried in my arms when his goldfish died, who'd told me I was his hero when he was 7 years old. "It's about respect," I said quietly. "It's about remembering that I'm not furniture. I'm not a maid. I'm not invisible." "I never said you were invisible." "You didn't have to say it, Daniel. You showed me. Every single day." Sarah stepped forward, tears starting to stream down her face. "This is so cruel. We've sacrificed so much to take care of you." I laughed, couldn't help it. "Take care of me?" "Yes." "Really? Tell me, Sarah, what exactly have you sacrificed?" She opened her mouth, closed it. We pay rent. You pay $400 a month for 2 rooms, a bathroom, full kitchen access, utilities, and all the food I cook. The house down the street rents for $1,800. So please, tell me again about your sacrifice. After everything we've done." "What have you done, Sarah?" I asked, my voice ice, cold now. "Tell me, what have you done for me?" She stammered. I've been supportive. You've complained about my cooking. You've rearranged my kitchen. You've taken over my living room. You've acted like this house is yours when you've contributed nothing. That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, sweetheart. Trust me, I know." Daniel sank back into his chair, head in his hands. I can't believe this is happening. I looked down at him, at my baby boy, now a man who'd forgotten where he came from. Believe it, I said softly. You have 30 days. I suggest you start packing. Sarah stormed out first. I heard her running up the stairs, slamming the bedroom door so hard the walls shook. Daniel sat at the table, staring at his half-eaten breakfast. I started clearing the dishes. Mom, he said quietly, please don't do this. I kept washing, hands in soapy water, back to him. It's already done. We can fix this. I can fix this. Just give me a chance. I gave you 6 months of chances. I didn't know you felt this way. I turned around, water dripping from my hands. Then you weren't paying attention. He looked up at me, and for just a second, I saw the little boy again, the one who needed me, the one who loved me. But then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and just like that, the moment was gone. I have to go, he muttered, standing up. I have a meeting. Of course you do. He walked to the door, stopped, turned back. You're really not going to change your mind? No. Even if I beg? Even then? He nodded slowly. Fine. Then I guess we know where we stand. He walked out. The front door closed, and I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and the ruins of a relationship I didn't know how to fix. But for the first time in 6 months, the house felt like mine again. I spent the rest of the day cleaning. Not because I had to, because I needed something to do with my hands. I scrubbed the kitchen until it gleamed, vacuumed every room, dusted the bookshelves, washed the windows. Sarah stayed in her room. I heard her on the phone, voice high and frantic, probably calling her mother, probably painting me as the villain. Maybe I was. But maybe I had to be. Daniel didn't come home until late. I heard his car in the driveway around 10 o'clock, heard him come in through the front door. I was sitting in my living room, in the dark, on my old couch, waiting. He appeared in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light. Mom? I'm here. He stepped into the room, didn't turn on the lights, just stood there, hands in his pockets. I've been thinking, he said. And I want to understand. Help me understand why you're doing this. I looked at him, at his silhouette in the darkness. Because I'm tired, Daniel. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm tired of living in my own house and feeling like a guest. Then let's change that. Let's set boundaries. We're past boundaries. Why? Because you didn't respect the boundaries I already had. You just kept pushing until there was nothing left of me to push. His voice broke. I never meant to hurt you. I know. That's what makes it worse. Silence. Then, what if I promised to do better? I stood up, walked over to him, looked up at my son, the man I'd raised, the man I didn't recognize anymore. You have 29 days left, I said quietly. Use them to show me I'm wrong about who you've become. I walked past him, up the stairs, to my bedroom, and I closed the door. Behind me, I heard him crying, really crying, and I didn't turn around. Because sometimes love means letting people fall, so they can learn how to stand again. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, the small one in the guest room, the one that wasn't really mine but was all I had left, and stared at the ceiling, listening. At 2 a.m. I heard footsteps, pacing, back and forth across the floor above me. Daniel. At 3 a.m. I heard crying, muffled, like someone had their face buried in a pillow. Sarah. At 4 a.m., I heard their door open, whispered voices, then the front door closing softly, a car engine starting, driving away. I got up and looked out the window. Daniel's car was gone. I went back to bed but didn't sleep. Morning came gray and cold. I made coffee, just 1 cup, for myself. The house was silent in a way it hadn't been in months. No TV blaring upstairs. No Sarah complaining about the water pressure. No Daniel rushing through breakfast before work. Just quiet. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, and the eviction notice they'd left it on the counter, crumpled, like garbage, and I tried to feel victorious. I'd done it. I'd stood up for myself. I'd taken back my power. So why did I feel so empty? The front door opened. I looked up. Daniel stood in the doorway. He looked terrible. Eyes red, hair a mess, still wearing yesterday's clothes. In his hands, he held flowers. Yellow roses. My favorites. "Mom," he said quietly. I set down my coffee. "Where's Sarah?" "At her sister's. She needed space." "From me or from you?" He flinched. "Both, probably." He walked into the kitchen slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal. Set the roses on the table between us. "I haven't bought you flowers since Dad's funeral," he said. "I know. I should have." "Yes, you should have." He pulled out a chair and sat down, across from me, like we were strangers at a negotiation. "Maybe we were." "I drove around all night," Daniel said, staring at his hands. "Just thinking. About what you said, about everything." I didn't respond. "And you were right," he continued, his voice cracking. "About all of it. I've been treating you like you don't matter by taking up space." "You didn't need to take my space to be important," I said. "You just needed to be kind." She nodded. "I know that now." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. On day 15, Daniel brought home a TV. For me. Not as big as Sarah's, but new, crisp, with a remote that actually worked. He installed it himself in my living room, and when he was done, he turned to me and said, "I should have done this first." "Yes," I agreed, "you should have." But I smiled when I said it. That night, we watched my cooking show together. All three of us, on my couch, in my living room. And for the first time in months, it felt like a family. On day 29, I woke up to the sound of boxes being carried down the stairs. I came out of my bedroom and found Daniel and Sarah loading up a moving truck. They'd found an apartment across town. Small, affordable, theirs. I stood in the doorway and watched them work. Sarah saw me first. She set down a box and walked over. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on us, even when you should have." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just hugged her. Daniel was next. He held me tighter than he had in years and whispered, "I'm going to do better, Mom. I promise." "I know," I said, "and I'll be here when you need me, but not because you live here, because I choose to be." He pulled back, smiling through tears. "That's fair." They left around noon. The house was empty again. But this time, the emptiness felt different. Not lonely. Just mine. I walked through each room slowly. The living room with my new TV, the kitchen where I could cook whatever I wanted, the attic where the deed sat, safe in its folder, a reminder that I'd fought for this. I ended up in the backyard, standing under the oak tree my husband and I had planted 40 years ago. The branches swayed in the wind, and I heard his voice in my head, clear as day. "You did good, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." I smiled. Then I pulled out my phone and called Daniel. He answered immediately. "Mom, everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I was just thinking, maybe you and Sarah could come over for dinner on Sunday. I'll make lasagna, your dad's recipe." There was a pause. Then, "We'd love that." "Good. And Daniel?" "Yeah? Bring flowers." He laughed, really laughed. "I will, Mom. I promise." I hung up and looked up at the tree, at the sky beyond it, at the house behind me, my house, my home, my victory. And I realized something important. I hadn't lost my son. I'd saved him. And in the process, I'd saved myself. You don't have to wait for someone else to give you permission to matter. You already do. You already did. All you have to do is remember.